The grand ballroom of Rosewood Palace sparkled under the crystal chandeliers as Queen Duchess Camilla adjusted her emerald tiara one final time. Tonight was special, the annual Children's Charity Gala where the royal family would present awards to young achievers from across the kingdom. 8-year-old Princess Charlotte Rose, the kingdom's beloved youngest princess, had been practicing her curtsy for weeks, eager to hand out the golden medals to the scholarship winners. Princess Charlotte wore a flowing lavender dress that matched her bright violet eyes, her golden curls pinned back with tiny diamond clips. She had always been the darling of the royal family and the public alike, sweet, intelligent, and remarkably poised for her age. The little princess had spent the afternoon rehearsing with her etiquette teacher, Miss Victoria, ensuring every movement would be perfect for the evening's ceremony. Queen Duchess Camilla, however, had been dealing with mounting pressures. As the king's second wife, she constantly felt the weight of comparison to the beloved late Queen Isabella, Charlotte's mother. The stress of royal duties, combined with recent criticism in the press about her fashion choices and public appearances, had left her nerves frayed and her temper shorter than usual. The palace staff bustled around making final preparations. Golden roses adorned every table, representing the royal family's emblem. The children who would receive awards sat with their families in the front rows, their faces glowing with excitement. Camera crews positioned themselves discreetly around the room, ready to capture what should have been a heartwarming evening of celebration. As guests filled the magnificent ballroom, Princess Charlotte practiced her speech one more time backstage. She had memorized every word, wanting to make her father, King Edmund, proud. The little princess had no idea that this evening would change everything, that in just a few short hours, a moment of unexpected conflict would shake the very foundations of the royal household and capture the attention of the entire kingdom. The ceremony began flawlessly. King Edmund delivered his opening remarks with the dignity and warmth that had made him beloved by his subjects. Princess Charlotte stood beside her stepmother, Queen Duchess Camilla, both smiling graciously as the crowd applauded. The first few award presentations went smoothly, with Charlotte handing out medals to deserving young students while cameras captured every precious moment. But behind the scenes, tension was building. Earlier that day, Queen Duchess Camilla had discovered that several newspaper articles were questioning her parenting abilities and her relationship with her stepdaughter. The headlines suggested she was jealous of the attention Princess Charlotte received and couldn't live up to the memory of the late Queen Isabella. The criticism cut deep, especially since Camilla had genuinely tried to be a loving stepmother despite the challenging circumstances. As the evening progressed, small incidents began to pile up. A servant accidentally spilled wine near Camilla's dress during a quick backstage moment. A photographer got too close while trying to capture a candid shot, nearly knocking over a floral arrangement. The Queen Duchess felt increasingly overwhelmed, her composure beginning to crack under the pressure of maintaining the perfect royal image. Princess Charlotte, meanwhile, was having the time of her life. The young princess basked in the warm smiles of the children receiving awards and the gentle applause of the audience. When a 10-year-old scholarship winner whispered, "You're even prettier than in the magazines, Princess?" Charlotte giggled sweetly and gave the girl an extra long hug that made the crowd collectively awe in delight. The moment that would change everything began innocently enough. As they prepared for the final round of presentations, Princess Charlotte accidentally bumped into Queen Duchess Camilla while reaching for the last medal. The collision caused Camilla to stumble slightly, and her carefully arranged hairpiece shifted, creating an embarrassing moment in front of the cameras. For the Queen Duchess, already on edge from the day's pressures, this small accident felt like the final straw. The collision happened so quickly that most of the audience didn't even notice the initial bump. But Queen Duchess Camilla's reaction was swift and shocking. In a moment of complete loss of control, fueled by weeks of accumulated stress and the embarrassment of her hairpiece falling askew on camera, she turned toward Princess Charlotte with fury blazing in her eyes. "You clumsy little brat," Camilla hissed under her breath, her voice barely audible to the nearby microphones but clearly heard by several staff members standing close by. Before anyone could react, before rational thought could intervene, the Queen Duchess raised her hand and struck Princess Charlotte across the cheek with a sharp slap that echoed through the immediate area. The sound seemed to freeze time itself. Princess Charlotte's violet eyes widened in complete shock, her small hand flying to her reddening cheek. The 8-year-old had never been struck by anyone in her entire life, let alone by someone she had tried so hard to love and respect as a mother figure. Tears immediately welled up in her eyes, but the little princess was too stunned to even cry out. Several things happened simultaneously in the seconds that followed. The camera operator closest to the stage caught the entire incident on film, though he was so shocked he nearly dropped his equipment. Miss Victoria, Charlotte's etiquette teacher, gasped audibly from her position near the stage. 2 palace staff members who witnessed the slap exchanged horrified glances, unsure of how to respond to such an unprecedented situation. But the person who reacted most quickly was Captain Marcus Sterling, the head of the royal guard who had been assigned specifically to Princess Charlotte's security detail. A decorated military veteran with over 15 years of service protecting the royal family, Captain Sterling had positioned himself strategically where he could observe both the stage and the audience. The moment he saw Queen Duchess Camilla strike the princess, his training and protective instincts kicked in immediately. The shock of what had just occurred began to ripple through the ballroom as those closest to the stage realized something terrible had happened to their beloved little princess. Captain Sterling moved with the precision and speed that had made him legendary within palace security. Within 3 seconds of witnessing the assault on Princess Charlotte, he was already crossing the stage with determined strides, his military bearing commanding immediate attention from everyone in the vicinity. His face was a mask of controlled fury, and his hand instinctively moved toward his radio to signal other security personnel. "Your Majesty, step away from the princess immediately," Captain Sterling commanded in a voice that carried absolute authority. His tone was respectful but firm, leaving no room for argument. The entire ballroom began to sense that something significant was happening, though most guests were still unaware of the specific incident that had triggered this sudden security response. Queen Duchess Camilla seemed to snap back to reality as the full weight of her actions hit her. The rage that had consumed her moments before evaporated, replaced by horror at what she had done. She looked at her own hand as if it belonged to someone else, then at Princess Charlotte's tear-filled eyes and reddened cheek. The realization that she had just struck a child, her stepdaughter, the kingdom's beloved princess, in front of cameras and witnesses began to sink in. Captain Sterling immediately positioned himself between Queen Duchess Camilla and Princess Charlotte, his protective stance making it clear that no further contact would be tolerated. He knelt down to Princess Charlotte's level, his stern expression softening as he addressed the frightened child. "Princess, are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" His voice was gentle but professional, designed to comfort while maintaining the gravity of the situation. Princess Charlotte finally found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "Captain Sterling, I don't understand what happened. Did I do something wrong?" The innocence in her question broke the hearts of everyone who heard it. The little princess, despite being the victim of an unprovoked attack, was wondering if she had somehow caused the incident. Meanwhile, other members of the royal guard had begun to converge on the stage area, following Captain Sterling's discreet hand signals. The situation was being contained, but word was already beginning to spread throughout the ballroom that something had gone seriously wrong with the evening's proceedings. King Edmund, who had been greeting dignitaries at the far end of the ballroom, noticed the unusual activity around the stage and immediately began making his way toward his daughter. His royal training allowed him to maintain a calm exterior even as concern filled his heart. The sight of Captain Sterling in protective mode and his daughter's distressed state told him everything he needed to know about the severity of the situation. "You did absolutely nothing wrong, Princess," Captain Sterling assured Charlotte, his voice firm and certain. "You are safe now, and that's what matters most." He stood and faced Queen Duchess Camilla directly, his professional demeanor masking the anger he felt at witnessing such treatment of the child he was sworn to protect. "Your Majesty, I must ask you to accompany me to speak with His Majesty the King immediately." The few guests who had witnessed the incident were still processing what they had seen. Mrs. Eleanor Whitfield, a prominent charity organizer who had been standing near the stage, felt her legs go weak as the reality of the situation became clear. She had watched Princess Charlotte grow up through public appearances, and had never seen the child as anything but delightful and well-behaved. The idea that someone would strike such a sweet little girl was incomprehensible. Queen Duchess Camillia's face had gone completely pale. The full consequences of her actions were beginning to dawn on her. The political implications, the public relations disaster, the damage to her relationship with the royal family, and most importantly, the harm she had caused to an innocent child. I don't know what came over me, she whispered, her voice shaking. The stress, the pressure. But that's no excuse. Oh God, what have I done? As King Edmund approached the group, his expression remained carefully neutral, but those who knew him well could see the storm brewing behind his eyes. Captain Sterling immediately briefed the king in low, urgent tones, explaining what he had witnessed and the immediate steps taken to protect Princess Charlotte. The king's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly as he absorbed the information. Princess Charlotte ran to her father the moment she saw him, burying her face against his formal jacket. King Edmund wrapped his arms around his daughter protectively, his gentle touch a stark contrast to the violence she had just experienced. The sight of the king comforting his distressed child while maintaining his royal composure moved many of the witnesses to tears. King Edmund's response was swift and decisive, demonstrating the leadership qualities that had earned him the respect of his subjects. After ensuring Princess Charlotte was safe and comforted, he immediately called for the evening ceremony to be concluded early, citing a family emergency that required immediate attention. His diplomatic skills allowed him to address the confused guests without revealing the true nature of the crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we must conclude tonight's celebration earlier than planned, King Edmund announced to the ballroom, his voice carrying the authority and grace expected of a monarch. The children who received awards tonight have truly earned their recognition, and we thank everyone for joining us in celebrating their achievements. Most guests began filing out, though many sensed something significant had occurred. Behind the scenes, Captain Sterling was coordinating with palace security to ensure all camera footage was secured and that witness statements were properly documented. His military background had taught him the importance of preserving evidence and maintaining proper procedures, even in such emotionally charged circumstances. He knew this incident would require a thorough investigation and likely legal proceedings. Queen Duchess Camilla was escorted to a private chamber where she would await a formal meeting with King Edmund and palace legal advisors. Her lady-in-waiting, Margaret, stayed with her as she struggled to process the magnitude of her actions. 20 years of royal service, and I've destroyed it all in one moment of madness, Camilla whispered, her hands shaking as the reality of potential consequences, legal, personal, and political, began to overwhelm her. Princess Charlotte was taken to the palace medical wing where Dr. Harrison, the royal physician, examined her thoroughly. Physically, she had only minor redness on her cheek that would fade within hours. Emotionally, however, the impact was more significant. The little princess kept asking her father if she had done something to make Queen Camilla angry, her innocent mind struggling to understand why someone she trusted would hurt her. The palace communications team worked frantically to manage what they knew would soon become a major international news story. Phone calls were made to legal advisors, child welfare experts, and public relations specialists as the full scope of the crisis became apparent to everyone involved. The days following the incident brought unprecedented challenges to the royal family. King Edmund faced the most difficult decision of his reign, balancing justice for his daughter with the stability of the kingdom. After extensive consultations with legal experts, child psychologists, and senior palace advisors, he announced that Queen Duchess Camilla would face formal charges for assault and would be stripped of her royal titles, pending the outcome of legal proceedings. Captain Sterling was praised throughout the kingdom for his quick thinking and protective actions. His intervention had not only ensured Princess Charlotte's immediate safety, but it also demonstrated that even royal family members were not above the law when it came to child protection. The incident sparked important conversations about child welfare and the responsibility of adults to protect children, regardless of their social status. Princess Charlotte, with the help of skilled counselors and the unwavering support of her father, began the healing process. King Edmund arranged for her to spend time with her favorite horses at the royal stables and to continue her art lessons, activities that brought her joy and helped restore her sense of security. The little princess showed remarkable resilience. though it would take time for her to fully trust again. The former Queen Duchess Camilla eventually pled guilty to assault charges and received both legal consequences and mandatory counseling. In her public statement, she expressed deep remorse for her actions and acknowledged that stress was never an excuse for harming a child. She voluntarily entered therapy to address the underlying issues that had led to her loss of control. The incident led to significant changes in palace protocol. New guidelines were established for recognizing and addressing stress among royal family members, and additional training was provided to all palace staff on child protection procedures. Captain Sterling was promoted to Chief of Royal Security, a position that allowed him to implement comprehensive safety measures for all royal children. Princess Charlotte's strength and grace in handling the difficult situation inspired people around the world. Letters of support poured in from children and adults alike, and the scholarship program that had been the focus of that fateful evening was expanded in her honor. The young princess learned that even in the darkest moments, there were always people ready to protect and support her. Years later, Princess Charlotte would look back on this experience as a defining moment that taught her about resilience, the importance of speaking up against injustice, and the power of having people like Captain Sterling who were willing to stand up for what was right, no matter the circumstances.